Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a die-hard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that and click on the like button. I'm excited about today's episode. We are going to talk about who has it better than Piston fans. So I got that idea kind of from Jim and John Harbaugh, the coach of the NFL. Their dad would take them out for a drive on Sunday. Their whole family, they'd jump in the station wagon and they'd go out to dinner and get some ice cream or something. And he'd just say to his family, "Who has it better than us?" And they would all yell, "Nobody." Well, I kind of feel that way about our Pistons, that nobody has it better than us. Of course, I'm a fan. I'm a fanatic. But we look at, there are some teams that might have it better than us. And we're going to discuss that. We're going to look at every team in the NBA. It's going to spend more time on some teams than other teams. But we're going to look at, who would you rather be? Would you rather have that team for your team, or would you rather be the Pistons? And I think we're going to be really happy where we are at right now. And I will, say this: things in the NBA change so fast. You can think that you got everything going for you, and we're going to talk about a few teams that are like that. And all of a sudden, things can crash and burn. Things can look terrible, and then all of a sudden, things can get turned around. Even in the course of the season, there can be major upswings and downswings on different teams. But we're going to start out with our Pistons, though. We're going to talk about them first. What a joyful team. What a team that's so much fun to be a fan of. We've won 10 out of 11. We've turned it around. We have one of the most historic turnarounds in NBA history. And they are just, but it's just not that we are winning games. There's teams that win games, and some teams are more fun than other teams. Our team is fun. We are exciting. We have dunked more than anybody. We hit some threes. We got a guy that shakes his butt, Beasley, and we got a superstar in Cade. And we just have a lot of things going. And you can sense it. You can feel it. You can see it with your eyes. We have a joyfulness on this team that we may never have again. I mean, it's hard. I saw them dancing together in the tunnel, and they just have so much fun. There are a lot of young guys, and I will contend, we certainly have gotten a big uptick from having the veterans. It's undeniable that Beasley and Tobias and Hardaway have all contributed professionalism, work ethic, and a lot of great qualities that they've, shared with our young guys. I would contend, though, our young guys and they're great people, and they have given this joyfulness to these veterans that they never would have experienced. I can tell you, I can't promise you, but my guess is, if you ask Tobias and Hardaway and Beasley if they've ever had more fun playing in the NBA than they are having this year, my guess is that they would say no. This is the most fun, and it's because everybody on this team is pulling for each other. Everybody is cheering on each other. You watch the bench. You see that on every team. Of course, we pay more attention because it's our team, but we just have these dudes. We've been getting like 30 assists every game. This team wasn't a good defensive team, but they are gritty and they are playing hard. We got Stu and Ausar that are great defenders, but everybody else has just really stepped up. Duren, JB talked about how much Duren has improved his positioning and how he gets in position. He's playing at such a high level, but how he's quick to get to his spots now, and he's reading things way better. And obviously, with his athleticism and his power, he's blocked 5 shots last night, he blocked 6 shots the night before, and he's intimidating down there. But he's also getting 14 rebounds a game and shooting 70%. So, little thing about the game against the Wizards last night, our team set a Piston record. I think that they shot, as a team, the whole team on 2-point baskets, they shot 78.4 points percent on 2-point baskets. So that's pretty impressive too. But I love it that, just the way they talk. Ausar, JB got Coach of the Month, and Asar's interviewed after the game, and he said, of course he got Coach of the Month. He deserved it. We expected it, and we're going to try to get him another one. And that's that connection that he has. And he says JB knows how to push us and when to push us. And, again, he's built these relationships by continual communication. Another thing I love, all of you, not all of you, but a lot of my listeners, we love B-Ball Paul. And I don't know if there's any way that we can re-sign him, but you just hear how much JB cares about him. And he doesn't play him. He said he's the unsung guy on our team. He works his tail off every day of every practice. He has a positive attitude, and he just brings joy, and he's ready to play every day. And he says it's not fair. He said he has every right to be salty. He said he deserves minutes in the NBA. He's an NBA player. I mean, he shows us every night. He gets in there for 15 minutes, and he just gets 3 for 4, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and his 2 steals or whatever he gets. But he just seems like he does it every time. And then there's games he doesn't even get in. But what do you do when Duren's playing at such a high level and Stu's playing at such a high level? It makes it real hard. And so there's only so many minutes at the center position. So yeah, he said that he deserves to play, and he doesn't, and he feels bad for him. So, but that's the caring, and that every coach doesn't care about every player on their bench, and it's important on a team to have everybody care about everybody else, and that's pretty evident in the way that the Pistons play. So let's start out with Cade. So when I look at who you'd rather have as your team, and there's players, again, I always use the Anthony Edwards thing. Anthony Edwards is more physically gifted than Cade. He can shoot the three, he can shoot the lights out, and he's a freak of nature athletically. But who is your leader? So we have Cade, and he's been the leader of every team that he's ever played on since he's been little. He's played on elite high school teams, he's played on elite 18 and under and 19 and under teams that are like the pre-Olympic teams. They've had all these guys who are playing in the NBA now, but he was always the undisputed leader. When he came in as a rookie, the veterans all said, he's our leader. And it's just, he has this presence. He has this calmness. He has the way that he speaks, but he also shows it in his effort, his unselfishness, and everything about him is just class. And I mean, I would contend Steph Curry sets this fabulous culture. People on the Warriors act a certain way because Steph comes to work every day. He's professional. He treats everybody right. So I think people don't act out on the Warriors, except for Draymond. They usually bind together because they respect Steph, and you don't want to let that person down, or you don't want to, when you see him busting his tail and treating everybody the right way, and he's the leader of your team, that is contagious. So, but we have Cade. So here's the other thing. Cade is 23 years old. 23 years old. So I talked about this on multiple episodes. The guys that win in the NBA, when they win their first championship, including Jason Tatum, won it last year, he's 27. Steph won it when he was 27. LeBron, 27. Michael Jordan, 27. Giannis, 27. Isaiah Thomas, 27. And there's others. And Cade's 23. So he's playing at all NBA. Again, everybody's saying he's, there's players hurt, so that factors into the equation, but he's a top 10 player. So to have a 23-year-old top 10 player that has all the intangibles of a leader that Cade Cunningham has is remarkable. And the other teams, they can have these guys that show promise and even have some skill or athletic talent, but they don't. And another thing is, when you have your best player, so Scotty Barnes is pretty good. He's not as good as Cade. He's not, but he's good. But he is not the point guard. He doesn't impact the game near as much. He's not shooting well, but he doesn't have the ball in his hands all the time. He doesn't, he might be a little bit better on defense than Cade. But there's just guys that have talent, but they aren't, because, like, again, the quarterback in professional football is by far the most important position. And you look at the percentage of the salary on every NFL team, they make way more money. Why? Because they're so much more important. So, but anyway, yeah, Cade is playing an all NBA thing. He plays the most important position. He's the leader. And, you look at Luka. So that was a disastrous trade. We're going to get into that more in a minute. But Luka is not Cade Cunningham, and Luka is more talented. Luka is better than Cade Cunningham. I unequivocally can say that. I had to say it twice, but he, that was a foolish trade, and it's gonna, the way it looks right now, it's kind of destroy their franchise for at least a certain amount of time. But Luka doesn't come in shape. Cade has gotten stronger and better conditioned every year, and Luka whines during games and doesn't get back on defense and gets technical fouls. Just like that's the same thing I said about Anthony Edwards. He's got suspended. He's got like 16 technicals. He's got fined a whole bunch of times. When your leader is out there falling apart and whining and complaining and not getting back on defense, what does that do for you? What does that do for the rest of your team when you see the guy that you're counting on and he's whining and complaining? And yeah, it's just tough. And when they don't bust their butt on defense, you see Cade Cunningham fight over picks. Watch him. Watch how far he gets up in the guy's growth. He's not always smart. He's got to get smarter because, again, last night he got 2 fouls like in the first 3 minutes of the game. That's not smart. And because the second foul, he came out from way behind. The guy beat him off the dribble, and he came out from behind and tried to swat it. And he had really little to no chance of doing it, but he got a second foul, and it hurts him. Maybe sometimes JB leaves him in for a minute, but he takes him out way earlier than he normally would. But anyway, those other guys don't put the effort that Cade does every time. Anthony Edwards has said, I don't like to pass. So I don't know. Cade loves to pass, and he loves to make his teammates feel better. But free agents, I'm going to tell you, it remains to be seen, but players are going to want to come and play in Detroit. The way we got things rolling, and to get to play with Cade Cunningham, and a guy that can get assists, but he can get you big buckets, tough buckets. He rebounds, he defends, and yeah. Steph is so great. I love Steph. Steph's one of my favorite players ever play. But he can't defend like Cade. Cade's 6'6" and he's strong, and works hard. Steph got himself stronger, but Steph is shorter, much shorter, and thinner frame. So anyway, Cade's 23. So Jalen Duren has been dominating. He's been dominating. Again, I talked to you a little bit about what JB said about him and about how it's not just an accident that he's doing all these things. He's reading things better. He's getting into possession quicker. He's being coached and he's learning faster. He knows he's getting their system better, but he is just a force. He rebounds the crap out of the ball. He's one of the top rebounders in the league. He shoots like close to 70%. He's been, but his passing. I complained him a little bit to Chris Webber, and his passing has been just phenomenal lately, and he it's going to be a great weapon for us, and he's doing it with a low number of turnovers now. He had some games back in the past, especially last year, where he got assists, but he might get 4 assists, but he might have 4 turnovers, and he doesn't touch it that much. But he's 21. He is 21 years old, and he is going to get better. And so it's going to be interesting what we sign him for. He's up for renewal. We don't have to sign him this summer because if we wait till the next year, he'll be a restricted free agent. So we can match anything. So if we want to keep him, we're going to keep him. We might have, depending on how much money but I'm going to be fascinated to see, because these guys are going to want to stay together. I just can tell you that. But they also want to make as much money as they can. So it'll be interesting to see where he sees himself financially, or how much money he thinks he wants to make. And again, my second favorite player on the team is Ausar. I love watching him. I love watching him as much or more than Cade. And just every little thing that he does, every little movement on the court, he gets loose. He doesn't get credit for things. He tips passes. Somebody else gets a steal, even though he's second in the NBA in steals since January. And yet he gets his hands on balls, deflects balls. He runs down offensive rebounds and loose balls that he gets us extra possessions all the time, game after game. He just needs to play more. Even I want him to play 30 minutes a night, but he does all these things at an elite level, and he still doesn't. His shot's not there yet, and he's not even looking to shoot threes. When was the last time you saw him shoot a 3? And so. He was trying to shoot some at the beginning of the year. He's in the gym working with Fred Vinson, him and Holland every day that they get a chance to. And, we got to trust in that's going to get his shot better. His form looks better. His shot is still flat, and I'm going to see. I said it again last night. Cade shot his 3-point shot is flat, and so he will never be consistent until he can lift it up. But it's he's got to it's even a physical thing now that his muscle memory, his arm goes out instead of up, and so that affects it. But I think Ausar can and will eventually. Again, he's a baby. He's just a young player, and so he's going to get better. And he just is so elite at everything and doing everything that contributes to winning. Our team defense has gotten so much better. We're now one of the best teams since he's got into the starting lineup. And we have Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey is 23 years old, and everybody that's ever been around him, every report you hear from general managers and coaches and things, other players, that nobody works harder than Jaden Ivey. So he shot 40% on threes last year. And at the end of the year, when he got hurt, I mean, he was like 6 for 8 the night that he broke his leg. And so I just have every bit of faith in the world that he's going to get better again. He's in the same class as Duren, so he's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of next year, but we can re-sign him this summer. So it's going to be interesting how much we offer him and how much he would accept. But he is a blur. And again, our team has another thing in our identity that has evolved during the course of the year is the fast break. We are killing everybody. We're first or second in the league in fast breaks. And everybody, look at the old guys are sprinting up the court because they know they're going to get the ball. They know, Beasley runs as fast as he can down the court to the corner. And how many corner threes and open threes does Beasley get in transition? All the time. And, so Ivey's a blur. He can push the ball if he gets it. JB's done a great job of telling Cade to push it ahead to Ivey. If he's up ahead of you, throw it to him, and Cade's done that. It's a conscious thing. It's a smart thing by JB. Cade does the same thing with Ausar. Cade will see Ausar up ahead of him, and he trusts him. I talked to a coach recently. There's some players you don't want to pass them the ball in certain positions. When they're running down the floor, you don't want to throw the ball to a streaking post player when they're 15 feet away from the basket. Unless they're Jalen Duren, he can handle it, I think. But anyway, I was talking about Ivey, and Ivey has just improved, and his consistency is going to improve. He's 23 years old. He's not a great defender yet, but he works his tail off. And we've seen all these guys exceed their where we would have thought they could ever be as defenders. And then the team defense. So, and I mentioned last night, JJ Redick said, the thing about defense is the number one thing is playing hard. Well, our guys are playing hard. It's contagious, and it's obvious when we watch them play. And so then we got Ron Holland, the Energizer Bunny commercial. He just keeps going and going and going and going. And he, again, for our fast break team, he is perfect. He just runs. He just wreaks havoc on the court. He's not. He messes around, gets into scuffles with everybody because he's right in their grill, and he just fights. I can't wait to see him get more and more minutes. Players, and so none of these guys. Look, I talked to you about 27 is about where people reach their prime, and we got 23, 21, 23, 19, and 20. They're all babies, and young players don't usually play defense as well. It takes some time in the NBA, and these guys have made a fast track under JB's leadership, and then they also turn it over too much. But I think that's going to get better and has gotten something better. So, you got guys like Beasley that want to be here, and they love it here. You look at Stu. Stu is the team guy. He's 23. Stu's a vet. This is his 5th year. This is Stu's 5th year. I'd say that almost classifies, but he embraces this team. He is happy as can be. He can play 18 minutes or 20 minutes and go out there and be 1 for 4 and get 5 rebounds and 2 or 3 blocks. And he's the happiest guy in the locker room. And he loves being here, and he's just such a great guy to have on the team, and he cares about all of his teammates so much. You can see that in any interaction away from the court. He's great with young kids and stuff. He does have that little thing that snaps once in a while when he's playing where he gets, angry and has things happen. But um, anyway, I just want to remind you, I am going to be going to Florida after I'm going to go watch my granddaughter play her district tournament, and then I'm going to be going to Florida for 2 weeks. So I'm going to be off the air. Some of you probably stopped listening by now, but I hope you stay with me because I'm going to talk about every team in the NBA. So let's jump right away to the team that would be the biggest bummer to be a fan of, and that's right now the Dallas Mavericks. So that was just like ripping their heart out when they traded Luka. Can you imagine if the Pistons traded Cade, how the fans would react? We feel like he's ours, and they had Luka even longer, and Luka was first team NBA 5 years, and then they watched him take them to the NBA Finals last year, and they trade him, and for a guy 6 years older, um, and then it's also injury prone. So that was tough. That their fans, and then they raised their ticket prices. I have a friend. I have a friend I really like that is he loves the Mavericks like I do. He lives in Dallas. He's an attorney there, and he's had season tickets right in the middle of the court, way down low. He's going to give them up. He's going to give them up. They're going to have a lot of fans. They raised their prices after all this crap went wrong, and how disappointing they thought this team. They had this team. They had some injuries with Lively and stuff, and then all of a sudden they trade Luka, and so um, it's just their franchise is at like an all-time low. Even though they still have some good players, they still have a good team. The truth is, Nico Harrison, that traded Luka, has made some brilliant moves, and then he did this, and his lack of awareness about how the fans would feel is just mind-boggling to me. That he wouldn't be aware that how much they love him and stuff. So, but yeah, they raised their ticket prices. People aren't gonna. They showed the game last night. They were losing bad, and everybody started in the third quarter. Everybody just started walking out the exits, and there've been protests and things, and so it's going to be real hard for them to bounce back, and it's going to be real interesting. So, what if you were a fan of the Phoenix Suns 2 years ago? You're on cloud nine. The Phoenix Suns get Kevin Durant, Matt Ishbia, the guy he played at Michigan State. He's the new owner there, and he's willing to spend and do whatever it takes to be good. And that's positive, except they just did a miscalculation. They traded for Bradley Beal, who had a no trade contract. So now they're stuck with him. He's been a really good NBA player. He's been an all-star a couple times. He's scored like 25 a game in a lot of seasons and stuff. But him and Durant and Booker, they're three of the best offensive players in the league. But it hasn't happened. They don't play good enough defense. They're paying all those guys so much they don't have other people around them. They've traded all their draft picks to get those guys, and now the sun is setting, and so they're talking about they're going to have to trade Durant. And are they going to be able to keep Booker? Booker's 28, and how is he going to do a rebuild? Piston fans want Booker, so who knows if he becomes a free agent, what would happen if we would ever go after him? But it would be a bummer to be a Suns fan. Just like, can you imagine? I thought when the Nets when they were younger, they had Kyrie and Durant and Harden. I thought that team was going to be a problem, and that they were going to win multiple NBA titles, and they did nothing. They basically did nothing. They almost advanced, but Durant stepped on the 3-point line, but they still weren't. That team wasn't still set to go anywhere. But it's just there's ups and downs, man. Like I said earlier, you can think, just even looking to this season, how high the Orlando Magic thought things were going, and then now things are going so bad, and the Pacers were going real bad for quite a while this year, and then now they are really on a roll. But anyway, so it'd be a bummer to be there. Can you imagine if you were a Philadelphia 76er fan? They lived through thinking that they got Joel Embiid. He was the MVP. He's amazing. He's amazing. He's 30 years old now. He's played in half the games. It's almost exactly half the games that his team has played in his career. He's only played in like half the games, and he's having surgery right now. And then they got Paul George, who's old, and Paul George is 34, and he's injured all the time. And they paid him a boatload of money, and he's not producing. I made the comment about how lucky they booed Tobias, and Tobias is playing way better than Paul George is this year. They still have Maxey, and he's really talented. They had a really good rookie that they drafted. He got hurt. They have some other decent players, but they're 21 and 39. So here's the thing. They have their first round pick is protected 1 through 6. They currently are at the 7th spot. So unless they fall below that, in the lottery, some teams, even if the team finishes with a better record than them, they can jump them in the lottery. So they're playing so bad, they obviously need to tank. But Oklahoma City, if the pick goes to number 7 or higher, Oklahoma City is going to get that high pick in this good draft. And we're going to talk about Oklahoma City in a minute, but that would be disastrous because they're Embiid's out for the season. They might as well just sit George. But they got Quentin Grimes. He won a game. They were one in their last 9 games. They won 1 game, and Quentin Grimes had 44 points, and he was tough again last night. And yeah, we had him. I talked about it a little bit because I loved him. I wanted the Pistons to get him when he was with the Knicks, and there was no chance that we were ever going to get him. And then we had him, and he was a restricted free agent, so we could have matched anything. Again, there's all the speculation he didn't want to be with the Pistons, but there's no confirmation on any of that. And Dallas traded him to the Philadelphia 76ers, so maybe there's something wrong with him. But anyway, they're not going much of anywhere. So so we talked about 3 teams that we would definitely not want to be. Now let's talk about some teams that we might prefer. And of course, you can't take the fandom out of it. We love these guys with all of our hearts. We watched them. We watched them grow up. We watched them drafted. We suffered through last season and the last 3 seasons or 5 seasons. And so now we're doing well, and so we fall in love with these guys. So it'd be hard for me to say, even if somebody said, all right, you can be a fan, this team can be your team. But obviously Oklahoma City, they're 50 and 11, and they're loaded. Their whole roster's loaded. They got 2 big 7-footers that can play, that are versatile. They got the MVP of the league that's like 26 years old and the leading scorer in the league. They got Jalen Williams. They got all these guys, and they got every first-round draft pick you can imagine. They got so many picks they can't even use them. So they could certainly get anybody they want. They could trade anybody they want. Anybody, if they want Kevin Durant, you can't tell me that they could overpay, and I would if I were a team like that. They can't sign all these draft picks that they have draft picks for, and they've even done that where they've traded back multiple picks and traded back for later years so they would have more picks because they have so many picks in the upcoming season. So anyway, they would be great. So 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I think, I had a fan say, I'm tired. I'm sick of the Pistons. I need to get another team or something. Find another team to cheer for. I told him, cheer for Oklahoma City. So they weren't great then. Then they made this like 22 game jump right after that, and I just saw they were loaded. They got all these draft picks, and I know they're going to be fun. A team that I don't like because they've been so lucky is the Spurs, and of course everything hinges on Victor, and he's got that blood clot, but he should be able to bounce back. They think just like Ausar, but they have some good young players. Then they get Fox. They get DeAndre Fox for nothing. They should have, the Spurs have a whole bunch of extra picks. They had a whole bunch of young players. They can't use all of them, but they didn't trade any of them for, they traded some garbage picks. They traded 1 first-round pick that's going to convert to 2 second-round picks. But they just have Devin Vassell, and they have Stephen Castle, who is getting better by the day, and they have they have a lot of good young players, Jeremy Sohan and Kelvin Johnson, and again they got all these draft picks, and so this year their pick, so they're losing. So one thing they get overrated. Everybody says, oh, you can't be good unless you win, and again last year Victor got Rookie of the Year, which he deserved it, but his team had a terrible record, and his team is like 25 and 34 right now. So they're way down there, and they had a losing record with Victor before he got his blood clots. So I just get a big kick out of that. And, Coach Pop, who, God bless him and hope he gets better. He had a stroke, but he, had terrible seasons, and he had Victor and they still were losing. But anyway, the Spurs are in great position for a long time. So it would be a good, cool to be a fan of them. And then there's the Cavs. So when they got Mitchell, I said, watch out. That team is really good. And then everything didn't go quite right. And again, last year they made it to the second round or something. JB gets fired, but the thing is, last year their four All Stars, um, Mobley and Mitchell and Garland and Allen, they played 19 games only together the whole season last year. So then they were hurt for the playoffs, and so now they're all healthy. And then they trade and get DeAndre Hunter, and he has been tearing it up and been even better than I wanted the Pistons to get him. I mentioned that before several times, and they could have got him for nothing like 2 years ago. They were just looking to get rid of him. He was a negative asset, and anyway, he was injured quite a bit. They felt like his contract was too big. Now his contract, a couple years later, is not as bad. So anyway, they are loaded. They got a great deep bench, and they're going to be trouble for their guys. Are all like right in their prime. Mobley's even younger, but he looks like he's going to be incredible. That class with Cade and Mobley and Franz and all those guys is just tremendous. So that would not be a bad team if you were a fan to get to be there, a fan of the Cavs. Um, and then you have a team like the Rockets. So again, I don't like the Rockets. I hate Dylan Brooks, and I don't like Jalen Green, but I love Amen Thompson. They are so loaded. They have so many players. Amen looks like he's going to be a superstar, just like Ausar. Green has been brilliant at times. Sengun was an all-star, their center. Cam Whitmore, a guy I wanted Pistons to draft, he plays sporadically. He had 27 the other night. He can hammer the dunks and he can shoot the three. And Reed Shepard, who hasn't hardly been able to get off the bench because their team is so good and so loaded, he had his career high just the other night, and he was like the number 3 player picked in the draft. Jabari Smith Jr., he was picked number 3 in the draft the year he came out, and he's like 6'11" and plays defense and can shoot the three, and he's still real young. And I love Tari Eason. I love him. He is everywhere, just like Ausar. He offensive rebounds. He just makes things happen. He's gotten better skill wise, and he is just a problem. So they got all these young players. They have too many young players. One thing they don't have Cade Parker Cunningham, and they don't have that leader on their team. They have a couple veterans that are doing a decent job being leaders now, but out of their group, Green is great and gifted, and he's more talented than Cade, in my opinion. But he takes bad, crazy shots. He doesn't care about passing the ball and making his teammates better. He doesn't always care about playing defense, and so there's just things about him. But they don't have that leader and stabilizer or that point guard like we have. So, but they have more great young players, like I said, too many, and they have but they have extra draft picks. So they have the ability, like Oklahoma City, not quite on Oklahoma City's level, to trade some young players because they can't. There's not minutes for them to go around, and you're not going to be able to sign. They could, you know, uh, combine some of their players and things and trade multiple players and draft picks to get a star player. So they're in a great position. Um, the Celtics, hard to deny, they are world champs. They got a lot of depth. I don't know how wide open their window is. Tatum just turned 27. I think Brown's probably like only 26, but they have Porzingis is getting a little bit older. He's had an injury history. Drew Holiday is a fantastic player, but he's getting injured more often, and he's aging. And Derek White is great, and he's still there, but they're all getting towards the end of their prime more. So, but that would be still a good team. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they win another championship in the next 2 years. So, I still don't like them as much as the Pistons. There's not as much fun to watch. They shoot the three, they pass the ball, they share the ball, they play good defense a lot of the time, but I still love our Pistons more. So some other teams that are like that is the Memphis Grizzlies. So here's the problem: is you get teams and you think you're getting close, but we're still young, and they got Jaren Jackson Jr. and he's going to make All NBA maybe this year. He could end up being um, Defensive Player of the Year, and he's very versatile, can shoot the three and block shots. And Ja is obviously the freak of nature. He's one of the most exciting players in the league, but he's hurt all the time, and he gets suspended, and he's not the leader. He is not Cade Cunningham. So again, you have this gifted player, and so it's fun to watch him and to be on your team. But I would not, you know, I wouldn't trade. And they good. They have a lot of assets, and so I talked about Aldama that are they going to be able to re-sign him? He's a free agent, and he's one of their really good 6'11" and can shoot the three. And anyway, we'll see what happens with Memphis, because then pretty soon after a while your window starts closing, and then their doubt ends up creeping in. So Denver, obviously, they just kicked our butt the other day, and they have Jokic, who everybody considers the best player in the league, but they're very limited. They have their players, again, they won the championship because all their players 2 years ago just hit their prime. They had just a deep enough bench. Right now their bench isn't very deep, and injury here or there really can hurt them. But Jamal Murray has really been tearing it up for the last month or so, and he's talented. And so Porter Jr. is a great three-point shooter and can rebound and stuff. So they have a nice squad, but we'll see. So I'd rather be a Piston. I'd rather have the Pistons. If I got my pick, if you said, gun to my head, which team would you rather have be your team, the Nuggets or the Pistons? I would take the Pistons. And the same thing with Memphis. And again, we're very young, so things might not pan out. But I just like our guys, and I like our talent. And like I said, we're like 23 and younger. We got this group of guys, like 6 guys, and they're great guys, and they're very talented. So anyway, the Lakers are interesting. You got LeBron, so he'd be. I guess a lot of people would like him to be on your team. There's something about LeBron. LeBron is certainly one of the greatest players that ever lived. One of the top two, undeniably, I would say. But and longevity wise, he's the greatest ever. But and he's playing. 40 years old, and he's just tearing it up still. But he's not as fun to watch. I'd rather watch Ausar play, but that's just me. But they got Luka, and again, Luka is special. Luka is more talented than one almost anybody that's ever played the game. But he's got some weird things. But the Lakers always have been able to pull off got things. They've always been able to get great players to come in. They got Shaq to come in there. They got Kobe they traded for, and Jerry West was brilliant. He's one of my heroes. But so I wouldn't. The Lakers don't have hardly any assets. They're playing great right now. JJ seems to be a really good coach, but I don't know how great their future is going to be. LeBron, if he could have 2 years left. Who knows? He could have 1 year left, but he's going to be gone, and then how much are they going to have left to build around? We'll see. So, and there's the Knicks. The Knicks loaded up. The Knicks, I think, in my guesstimation, did everything right. They had this roster, and they traded, they saved a whole bunch of assets. They accumulated a whole bunch of first-round picks. Then they went all in and got Bridges and got OG Anunoby, and then they made the big trade for Towns. They got this talented roster, but they're not great on defense. They've gotten killed by all the top teams. Everybody on their team is right now, they're in their prime, so their window is now. They're still not too old, but they're still like 28, to 30 years old or whatever. And so they're going to be aging, and they're not going to, they struggled again. They're like 0-7 against OKC and Boston and Cleveland. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. And again, Jalen Brunson's a great player. I'd rather have Cade. Cade's much taller, and he plays much better defense. He's a better passer. And anyway, and Brunson's older, but not, I don't know. He's a great player. I admire him because of how hard he works for being. He's not he's not very tall and he's not very athletic, and he is incredible in the clutch, but still. So the Knicks are going to be a fascinating team. We could easily end up playing them first round of the playoffs. If the season ended today, I think that's who we would play. Um, the Bucks are a tricky one. They're playing great lately, even without Bobby Portis is suspended for 25 games. I thought maybe we could catch them, but they're on a roll. Of course, all it takes is Giannis to miss a couple weeks, and then they're going to free fall. And Damian Lillard is injury prone too. He's older. Giannis is getting older. Lopez has played great this year, but he's old, and so they just don't have a lot, to be their team. And it's just more fun to be a Piston fan. I can say that. I'd rather be a Piston fan. I'd rather have the Pistons than the Lakers. I'd rather be the Pistons than the Grizzlies. And those are all really good teams that are probably going to all finish with as good or better records than the Pistons. The Pacers are a hard one because I hate the Pacers. And so the Pacers are got some good young players. Halliburton, it's weird that he's had some inconsistencies where and part of them I think have been affected by some injuries he's had, but he is a key to their team. But they have some good young players along. Siakam's made a big difference for them. Miles Turner's a free agent, and so who knows what's going to happen with him. Everybody wants him because he's a 7-footer that can shoot threes and block shots, and there's hardly any of those on the planet Earth that can do all those things. So we'll see what the Pacers do. And I'd rather be a Piston. So, but they have a good team, and they're doing really well this year. They really turned it around. They weren't doing good for part of the year. So, um, yeah, well, the Warriors. Steph Curry's been one of my favorite players to watch. He's just a delight to watch. He loves the game, and his skill level that he plays at is just so. He shoots the percentages that he shoots and makes the numbers he shoots, and they're on ridiculously. They're bad shots. I get sometimes frustrated that Hardaway takes bad shots. Beasley makes a high number of bad shots. By a bad shot, I'm saying when you're really contested, when a defender's right in your face and you're way far out and you have to rush the shot up quickly. It's only special players like Steph and Beasley that can make those. So anyway, yeah, Steph's great, and they're like 9-1 since they got Jimmy Butler, and so they got some other players, and but they got a lot. They don't have much cap space. Of course, they will have cap space because all those guys, Butler and Curry and Draymond, their contracts all are gone after 2 years. I don't know, and so they're going to be reboot. So, yeah, but they have to start from scratch, just like some other teams that we're going to be talking about. It would be sad to be a Pelicans fan. They did a great job drafting. They had looked really good at times, but they're 17-44, and they have had just unbelievable injuries this year and last year. And they finally unloaded Brandon Ingram, who is talented, but they still have some extra draft picks. They got one of my favorite players in the NBA, Trey Murphy the third. He is phenomenal. He is really taken that leap. A lot of players don't get opportunities, and when they get an opportunity, like Quentin Grimes scored 44. Trey Murphy has had this breakout year because they've had all these injuries. If they didn't have all those injuries, Trey Murphy might not have gotten that chance. But he's great. They got Herb Jones. It's one of the best defenders in the league, but he's been injured all the time. And C.J. McCollum, who is a really good player, has been a really excellent NBA player, but he's been injured a lot, and then this year, and he's just not a great defender. He's a little bit undersized. He can score the ball, but he's not exactly the kind of guy that you want to play to win. And then the big Zion problem is, Zion's so gifted, and you watch him play, and he's remarkable, but he has been injured so much. He's played like half his games that he's had opportunities to play, and so, what do? You got that big contract, and if he plays in a certain number of games, his contract is lessened. But what are you going to get for him if you trade him? I would think you would get less than what he's worth, or do you keep him? And I think he's frustrated him. He's been late for airplane flights and stuff. So I love some of the Pelicans, but I would rather be the Pistons. So, excuse me, been talking a lot. we watched the Jazz play last night, and Danny Ainge just got racking up the draft picks. But you got to use him at some points. He got criticized at Boston for sometimes because he had all these assets and he wasn't using them. But they were terrible last night. But I think they're already tanking. I don't know how seriously injured. Like Collins, John Collins has had a great year. Like 4 years ago, I wanted the Pistons to get him. He's big and talented, so they need to get some value out of him. Lauri Markkanen, they signed him. He's a little bit older, but he is really talented. So, I don't know if they're going to trade or keep him. They can't trade him this year, I know. So, anyway, they're tanking, and so they were bad last night. The Wizards are pathetic, but they are finally made the right move. They were playing in that middle of the road game where they were just barely in the playoffs or just barely out of the playoffs for years, and now they finally got rid of guys and they're trying to lose, excuse me. They're trying to get high draft picks. They're playing all their young guys. Koulibaly and some guys are really talented, and Ausar they drafted in the first round this past year, and so, but they're a bunch of years away. They're like 4 years away from ever being anything, and they got to get their guy. Again, a big key thing. The thing is getting your guy, and what I mean by getting your guy is getting a guy like Cade Cunningham, who is a leader, who can take the big shots, who can create for others, and so they don't have that yet, and it's hard to find those guys. The Raptors, they're like stuck in the middle, in my opinion. They have some talented players, but Scotty Barnes is a good player, but he's not great, and their record's not that good, and they got a lot of players who are making a lot of money, and so what do you do, with R.J. Barrett, and he's having a good year, but where's he taking you? So the Bulls are the classic stuck in the middle team that everybody just shakes their head at. Why are the Bulls not just trading everybody? They kept players. They did finally trade some players, but they still kept too many. They traded Zach LaVine finally, but they just need to make everybody around them knows that they need to just go all in on the rebuild. So we'll see how much they tank at the end of the year. So they're still trying to win games, it looks like, but Cooper Flagg can change things for some of these teams. He is amazing. He is an all-around player. He has the Cade Cunningham gene. He has more athleticism than Cade. He's taller than Cade, but he's a passer. He's a scorer, and he's a freak defender. He on the ball and off the ball, and so he can turn a franchise. Any of these teams, if you get Cooper Flagg, you would think that you would like to have that team. That would be fun to have him on your team. So anyway, I'm rambling. I've talked a long time now, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you listen to the whole thing, or if you don't listen to it all at once, if you go back and listen to it. But anyway, thank you. I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks, but I appreciate every one of you. Be the reason that somebody feels loved, and go Pistons.